I told my boyfriend about the night I was almost attacked. He turned it into podcast content without asking. He told my trauma like it was a ghost story at dinner, mimicking my fear for laughs. Then I found his podcast, 3,200 plays on my worst memory, turned into content, with music and narration. He didn't even ask. I used to think love meant knowing everything about someone, their secrets, their scars, the little things that make them tick. I told Adam everything. Every dark corner of my life, every bruise I carried, physical and otherwise. And when I told him about that night, I believed I was placing the heaviest part of me in the safest hands. We'd been dating for 8 months when I first shared the story, how, when I was 21, I was followed home after closing up the cafe I worked at. How I was grabbed just feet from my door. How the only thing that saved me was the neighbor's porch light flicking on when they stepped out for a smoke. I told Adam how I still check over my shoulder, how I sleep with the lights on if I'm alone, how I flinch when someone walks too close behind me on the sidewalk. He listened. He held me. He told me I was strong. He told me I was safe with him. That's what I held on to. That belief that he was safe. So when he invited me to dinner with his childhood friends, a small, cozy get-together at his friend Colin's house, I was nervous but said yes. It was our first time hanging out with his core group, and I wanted to make a good impression. The night started off warm. Laughter, takeout containers scattered across the table, half-drunk wine. I was just starting to feel relaxed when Colin brought up some podcasts about near-death experiences. "Oh, you've got to hear the story Adam told us about Claire," he said, eyes lighting up like it was showtime. I blinked. "Wait, what?" Adam just smirked. "Oh, come on, babe. You know the one, with the guy following you? It's wild." I sat frozen, blood draining from my face as Adam leaned forward, animated, launching into my story like it was a damn ghost tale around a campfire. He mimicked my fear, the way I ran, the panic in my voice, even made a little door lock sound effect with his tongue that made everyone chuckle. And then, bam! Porch light comes on, guy bolts. Like some horror movie plot twist. He laughed. She had no idea the guy was right behind her until then. Laughter. Actual laughter. I felt like the walls were caving in. My story, the worst moment of my life, had become a dinner table punchline. I looked at Adam. Really looked. He wasn't just sharing it. He was entertaining with it. Like it was something he owned. Like it was a story about me, not something that happened to me. I couldn't even speak. I sat there, hard hammering, mouth dry, while his friends offered half-sympathetic, half-curious looks, like I was a museum exhibit. When the dinner ended, Adam reached for my hand in the car like nothing happened. "You okay? You seemed quiet at the end. You told them about that night?" I said quietly. He shrugged. "Yeah. Just once or twice. It's a crazy story. I didn't think you'd mind." I turned to him. "You didn't think I'd mind you turning my trauma into a party trick?" His face twisted, defensive, almost annoyed. "I was making a point. About how lucky you were. And they loved it. I was trying to help you seem strong." That was the night I realized something I'd never wanted to believe. Adam didn't see my trauma as sacred. He saw it as content. Didn't leave him that night. I wish I could say I stormed out, packed a bag, walked away with my dignity intact. But that's not how it goes when you're in love with someone who's quietly been stripping you of your boundaries one joke at a time. Instead, I sat in silence the whole ride home. I climbed into his bed like I had so many nights before. I lay next to him while he scrolled on his phone, completely at peace, like nothing had happened. My body was still, but inside I was screaming. The next morning, I told myself it was a one-off. A lapse in judgment. He didn't understand the weight of what he'd done. People make mistakes. But the truth was, I didn't want to start over. I didn't want to be single again, or explain to friends and family why another relationship didn't work out. I didn't want to admit that the man I trusted with my most painful memory had turned it into dinner conversation. So I swallowed it. Like I'd swallowed other things before, the comments, the jabs masked as jokes, the times he said I was too sensitive when something felt off. But now I was paying attention. A week later, we went to his friend Liv's birthday party. I was quieter than usual, standing off to the side with a drink, when I overheard Liv ask Adam how we met. And there it was again. She was a regular at the cafe where she worked. Total bookworm. Cute in that, like, tortured poet way. I think I had to order like 20 cappuccinos before she gave me her number," he said with a laugh. Not a lie, but not true either. I wasn't a regular, I was the shift lead, working 12-hour days to keep the place from collapsing. And he hadn't flirted for weeks before I caved. He left a note on a napkin, and I texted him back out of curiosity, not romance. But his version? It played better. It made him the persistent charmer. Made me the shy girl who finally gave in. And just like that, I understood. Adam curated me. He took the real pieces of me, the trauma, the stories, the me cute, and edited them for entertainment. I started testing him. Dropping little things to see what he'd say in public. I casually mentioned an old high school stalker I'd had, true, and a week later, his friends were laughing over how Claire's always been popular, she had a guy follow her home even back in high school. I told him a story about getting caught in a fire drill wearing an embarrassing face mask I made in middle school. Days later, he made a joke at a game night about how I used to be the weird kid who smeared clay on her face for fun. That night, I stared at him across the room and realized I didn't recognize him anymore. Or maybe I did, and I was just finally admitting who he'd been all along. The worst moment came 2 weeks later. I was in the bathroom at Colin's apartment during another hangout when I heard voices just outside the door. "She's cool," one of his friends was saying. "But it's kinda messed up, man. The whole stalker thing? You ever fact-check that?" Adam chuckled. "Nah, she's not lying. She's just dramatic. You know how trauma girls are. Everything's a little extra." I didn't even cry. I just stared at myself in the mirror. He didn't defend me. He didn't say I was strong or brave or honest. He called me dramatic. Like my trauma was a performance. Like I was one of his stories now, exaggerated, convenient, and meant to impress. When I stepped out of the bathroom, I didn't say a word. I sat beside him for the rest of the night, smiled politely, even kissed his cheek when we left. But I knew something he didn't. I was done playing his character. I didn't confront him right away. Instead, I started collecting the pieces. Quietly. Deliberately. The way you'd gather proof before quitting a job where your boss keeps, accidentally, forgetting to pay you. I backed up our texts, especially the ones where I'd opened up about that night. I found the first message I ever sent him, when I replied to his napkin note. It was friendly, not flirtatious. I printed out old photos I'd taken at the cafe, timestamps included, proving I was never just a regular. I knew I didn't owe this to anyone. But I needed to see it for myself. To have tangible proof that I hadn't imagined the shift, that the man I loved had slowly turned me into a character in his highlight reel. The final confirmation came in the form of a podcast. His. I found it accidentally. A mutual friend had posted a clip on her Instagram story. "So proud of Adam for launching this. Give it a listen." I clicked the link out of idle curiosity, not expecting anything big. I thought maybe it was a side project about tech or design. But the title hit me like a brick. Dates, Disasters, and the Women Who Survived Them, Episode 1, The Girl in the Alley. I froze. I played it. It was me. He changed my name, but not by much. Kara instead of Claire. But the rest? Unmistakable. The alley. The porch light. The panic. The line about my breath catching when the light flicked on. His voice was calm, almost soothing. Like a true crime narrator. He even added background music, slow piano, rising tension. I listened to the entire episode in numb disbelief. He ended it by calling the woman me. A testament to resilience. And plugged his Instagram handle for more unbelievable true stories. The episode had 3,200 plays. He never told me. Never asked? Never warned me that my worst memory was now content for strangers to consume with their morning coffee. I closed the app and sat on the edge of my bed, shaking. It wasn't just a betrayal of trust. It was theft. Emotional theft. Identity theft. He'd taken something sacred, violated it, and dressed it up as a podcast to grow his brand. And the worst part? The comments. "This sounds fake, but it's a good story. I bet this car girl just made it up for attention. No way this actually happened. Porch light saves the day? LOL. I felt hollow. Like I didn't exist anymore. Only the version of me Adam had carved and put on display. I didn't cry that night. I packed. I folded my clothes neatly. Unplugged my chargers. Took only what I came with, plus the files I'd gathered. He was out, at a podcast meetup, of all things. Perfect timing. I left a note on the kitchen counter. Just one sentence. You didn't ask if I survived, you asked if it would get you views. Then I locked the door behind me. That was 2 months ago. And now? Now I have a lawyer. Because yesterday, I got an email from a woman named Jenna, another one of Adam's exes. She found me through a comment I left anonymously on his latest episode. She said he told her story too. A different trauma, same exploitation. She also never gave consent. We're not the only ones. Turns out, Adam's podcast isn't a tribute to survivors. It's a scrapbook of stolen pain. And I'm going to burn it down. Jenna and I met at a small diner off I-87. She was already at the booth when I walked in, cardigan sleeves pulled over her hands, stirring a cup of tea like it was the only thing holding her together. I slid into the seat across from her, and we stared at each other for a few seconds, silently acknowledging the strange, terrible bond we now shared. He called me Ellie, she said. No hello, no pleasantries. Just straight to the point. In his second episode. I listened to it before I even knew he had a podcast. She reached into her bag and pulled out a spiral notebook, flipping it open. Pages of dates, messages, screenshots. She'd been preparing for this longer than I had. He told the story of how I got a restraining order against my ex. She continued. Except he added fake details to make it punchier. Like how I allegedly bought a knife, or stood outside my ex's house sobbing. That didn't happen? I asked. No, she said, eyes hard. But it made for good content, apparently. As we compared notes, more puzzle pieces started falling into place. He'd done this at least 5 times, we knew of 5. Jenna had already contacted 2 others who confirmed their stories were used under fake names with slightly altered timelines. Each woman had shared something deeply personal with Adam. Each woman had heard it retold as a gripping, true story. For strangers. None had given permission. And he hadn't just shared, he'd profited. His podcast was monetized now. A few sponsors. Growing ad revenue. A Patreon, where subscribers paid for unedited bonus content. The bonus content? Raw interviews. Audio clips. One of them was a phone call I'd had with Adam, the night I first told him about the man who followed me. He'd recorded it. Without my consent. I felt the room spin. That wasn't just a betrayal, it was illegal. That's when Jenna leaned in. I spoke to a lawyer. There's a case here. Privacy violations, defamation, emotional distress. Maybe even criminal charges, depending on how he got some of the recordings. I didn't hesitate. I'm in. Over the next week, the 5 of us, me, Jenna, and the other 3 women, shared everything with the attorney. It was painful. We had to relive what we went through and how Adam twisted it. I remember one woman, Lisa, breaking down on the call. He made it sound like I wanted the attention. Like I was proud of what happened to me. We submitted audio, transcripts, text threads. The lawyer assured us this was serious. That Adam wasn't just skating on thin ethical ice, he was breaking laws. That gave me strength. But the emotional toll was heavy. My hands shook constantly. I couldn't sleep. Every time my phone buzzed, I half expected it to be Adam, demanding answers, gaslighting me again. But he didn't call. He didn't even text. Because Adam didn't see real people. He saw characters. And when a character leaves the story, you don't chase her, you write a new one. Until the cease and desist letter arrived. We sent it to his personal email, his podcast email, and even dropped a physical copy at his apartment. Our lawyer gave him 7 days to take down all content involving us, remove monetized episodes, and issue a formal apology, or we'd file a civil suit. Day 1, no response. Day 2, silence. Day 3, his podcast vanished from Spotify and Apple. Day 4, he deleted the Patreon. Day 5, he emailed. No apology. No remorse. Just one line. You've ruined everything. I read it over and over. Not I'm sorry. Not I was wrong. Just blame. Just the same twisted logic he'd always used, that our pain was his to use, and that by reclaiming it, we were the problem. But I didn't feel scared. I felt clean. After Adam's email, something shifted in me. I expected relief, maybe even triumph. But what I actually felt was clarity. Like someone finally wiped the fog off a mirror and made me look myself in the eye. For years, I'd shaped my identity around being resilient. I survived the alley, I survived Adam, I survived every conversation where I laughed off a jab just to keep the peace. But surviving isn't the same as living. And I was done just surviving. Jenna and I kept in touch constantly. The five of us called ourselves the Unscripted. A dumb name, maybe, but it helped. It made us feel real again. Like we were reclaiming the narrative, piece by piece. Then one of the women, Delia, did something bold. She went public. An anonymous Reddit post. Just enough detail to tell the truth without identifying herself. She shared how her story had been recorded and aired without permission by a podcast host she once trusted. She named no names. But people knew. The post went viral. Hundreds of comments. Women saying they had been through similar things. Podcast fans asking uncomfortable questions. Listeners digging into the now-deleted episodes, comparing voices, timestamps, IP traces. Within 2 days, someone linked the pattern back to Adam. He panicked. I know that because he started texting me again, rapid fire. Why are you doing this? I helped you tell your story. I built that podcast for women like you. It was the last one that pushed me over the edge. I replied, one time, with a screenshot of the Patreon tier where subscribers got exclusive Survivor content for $9.99/month. You built it on women like me. Not for us. I blocked him after that. 3 days later, I got a call from a local journalist who'd been following the Reddit thread. She wanted to run a story, not just on Adam, but on the broader issue of trauma exploitation in podcasts and true story media. I hesitated. Speaking up felt like dragging the past back into the light. I'd moved on. I was healing. But I also remembered something Lisa said on our last call. Silence is where people like him thrive. So I agreed. The article dropped a week later. It didn't name Adam directly, but the breadcrumbs were enough. The story was titled, When Your Pain Becomes Their Content, The Dark Side of Personal Storytelling. It exploded. 2 more women came forward. Both said they dated Adam briefly. Both had heard episodes eerily similar to their lives. Adam posted a note on his personal blog titled, My Side, trying to paint himself as misunderstood, a champion of unheard voices. But by then, no one was buying it. Comments were locked within an hour. Sponsors pulled out. A former friend posted a TikTok calling him out directly. And me? I watched it unfold from my apartment, sipping tea, heart steady. I wasn't rejoicing in his downfall. I wasn't out for revenge. I just wanted the bleeding to stop. The podcast was gone. The Patreon was shut down. The lawyer said he might try to rebrand under another name, but his reputation was scorched. And if he resurfaced? We were ready. I started sleeping better. Eating again. I even signed up to volunteer at a support center for women recovering from trauma, not because I wanted to be a warrior, but because I knew how isolating it could feel when your story doesn't belong to you anymore. And maybe that was the lesson all along. We don't owe anyone our pain. Not even the people we love. I never told my parents what happened with Adam. Not because I was hiding, but because I knew the kind of response I'd get. My mom would say something like, Well, he seemed nice. And my dad would probably make a joke about how I dodged a bullet. What they wouldn't understand is that I didn't just walk away from a bad boyfriend. I walked away from being useful to someone else's story. That subtle erosion of self, the little jokes, the retold memories, the way Adam smiled when people laughed at my worst moment. That's what I escaped. Not a villain in the cartoon sense, but someone who genuinely believed my pain was a tool for his purpose. I live differently now. I moved to a smaller apartment. Quieter neighborhood. No shared walls. No echoes of his voice. I repainted the walls myself, white, with soft gray trim, and built the bookshelves I always wanted but never got around to because Adam said they were too cluttered. I built them anyway. Jenna visited once, helped me organize the books by color, laughed when I alphabetized the nonfiction. She said, You're not who I expected. I asked what she meant, and she said, You're gentle. I thought someone who took him down would be louder. I smiled. Gentle doesn't mean soft. It means I'm finally safe. We still talk sometimes. All 5 of us do. We check in, not just when something bad happens, but when something good does. Lisa got a promotion. Delia adopted a dog. Jenna finally finished a short story she'd been rewriting for years. And me? I wrote an essay. Not for a blog, not for a podcast, not for attention. Just for myself. I wrote out what happened. From the beginning. From the moment I trusted Adam with my story to the night I reclaimed it. It was brutal to write. I cried halfway through and almost deleted the whole thing. But I didn't. I kept going. And when I finished, I printed it out and placed it in a folder on my bookshelf. Top shelf. Between Educated and A Year of Magical Thinking. I don't plan to publish it. I just wanted it to live somewhere I chose. Not in someone's download folder. Not between ads for mattresses or meal kits. Not on a podcast called Dates, Disasters, and the Women Who Survived Them. Just in my home. On my terms. There's a strange peace that comes with reclaiming the parts of yourself someone else tried to edit. It's like waking up in your own skin again. I still don't walk alone at night. I still check behind me. The trauma's not gone. But now, when I tell my story, if I choose to tell it, it's not to shock anyone. Or entertain them. Or prove anything. It's because I want to. And that makes all the difference.